right, welcome back to Tracklandia, everybody. We are inching ever closer to CIM. It's going to take place on December 8th this year, the first annual race. First started in 1983. We've got CJ Albertson here, Brooks athlete, fifth at the trials this year. He's a 2:08 man, did that in Chicago this year, first American in Chicago, and the defending CIM champion from last year. That was December, and I guess we'll include that in the marathons that took place this year as well. CJ, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, well, you've run, we were just talking a little bit before we jumped on here, but you've run 4 marathons so far this year, I believe. The trials in Orlando in February, then Boston, Chicago in October, New York in November, and now you're going to run CIM in December. Before that, you also ran CIM last December and then the Baja Marathon like a week after CIM. That's quite a big year for you.
Yeah, it's been a good year. Yeah, definitely lots of good consistent marathons. Yeah, I just kind of paired them all up like fairly close together, but then in between that took a lot of time off. Like, I mean, most people don't realize this, but in between Boston and the summer, I had 10 weeks where I averaged about 25 miles a week, just some short jogs. So, yeah, so I have a lot of time off in there, but it's just like when I'm running, when I'm training, I try to make those few months count.
Is that, I mean, that sounds planned, that down period for you. Is that something that you built into the schedule?
Planned and unplanned, like it was probably a little bit longer than I initially anticipated, but it's hard to, when you don't have any races coming up, it's hard to be like really heavily training. So, like since I didn't really need to start getting in shape until the end of the summer. I naturally just didn't really train until I needed to. So yeah, a little bit planned. It probably, probably dragged on longer than I needed to, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you get sick of hearing about this or the questions being asked, just about how different your approach seems to be than other marathoners, because other marathoners, 2 is probably what they shoot for in a year, 26.2 milers and maybe 3, and you're throwing 7 in there in like a just over 12-month period. Is your approach, and maybe you can't even answer this, I guess, but it seems like it's either extremely dedicated and kind of and rigid, or it's just like a what the heck, let's go run this kind of thing. In your mind, what do you veer most towards?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think it's the both maybe. I mean, basically I'm gonna run the marathons that I think are interesting to me, entertaining, and fun, and that I can make money on. Basically, that are beneficial to me. So, when I'm in shape, it makes sense to race because I'm benefited by racing. And then, but it's also nice to have periods of time where I'm not racing and where I don't need to be, training a ton. I can just kind of take some downtime. I mean, yeah, I think you might as well take advantage of the times that you're in shape. And I know other people have different philosophies where they'll train a really long time and, maybe they make some improvements that set themselves up, later on in their careers. But that, especially training alone, like that's not fun for me. I don't think I could last doing that. And I think my longevity would be really shortened because I just would not enjoy that. So yeah, if I'm training, I'm racing, and if I'm not racing, I'm not training.
Who are the people that you train with?
Myself. But yeah, I mean, if I'm doing like serious workouts, they're all solo. Sometimes I can run with some of the guys on my team or something for like some easy runs. But even then, like normally our workout days, like their workout days and my easy days, like this year they didn't really align at all. So most of my runs are solo.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting hearing you say that. Yeah, when you want to race, you race. Because I think there's a lot of athletes who put a lot into a single race and then maybe miss out on opportunities to really hit a good one because they've built out this big training block. How often do you kind of take a race as it comes, or like feel like, oh yeah, this isn't part of the plan, but I want to jump into this and do this because I feel good and I feel ready to go.
Yeah, sometimes I do that. I mean, for a marathon, it usually has to be somewhat planned. Besides the Baja race last year, that was literally planned like 3 days before. But for the most part, like it's somewhat planned before. You know, like this fall, I knew I was gonna do Chicago and New York. I wasn't set on doing CIM. Like it's always in the back of my mind because it's so close, and I know I'm gonna be typically gonna be taking December mostly off from running, so it kind of makes sense as a race to do. So I didn't necessarily have it planned at the beginning of the fall, but it's always kind of like in the back of my mind, like okay, I might may do CIM. So yeah, a little bit of both. I'll take races as they come. Like if some new opportunity presents itself, I may take it. But for the most part, marathons kind of have to be planned a little bit in advance just because of the nature of them. And in some races you have appearance fees, so you're setting things up beforehand and travel and all that.
Yeah, it's a beast. Yeah, and Baja was what? How many days after CIM last year? It was
7.
7 days. Is there any chance that you're going to go back down for that?
No, I'm going on a I am going to Mexico, but on a cruise. So yeah,
That's
there's no chance yet.
yeah, I approve of that message. That's a good way to go down there. um, yeah, the races that you've run this year, though, of all including last year's CIM in Baja, 2:11:09 was your slowest marathon, and 2:08 your was your fastest. So that's an incredibly tight range there too for as many races that you've run. The course record for in CIM is 2:10:27. So you're as close as anybody's gotten to that last year, I believe. There have been a few 2:11s in recent history, but how much is that a factor for you heading into this race this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I would like to break. I mean, I'm mainly going to be competing for the win, but I would also like to, definitely like break that course record. It's been around. I don't know how long it's been around, but I know it's been a long time, and so it's kind of due to be broken. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll be in good enough shape to do it, but also since New York training has been a little bit difficult and not necessarily the same that it was, building up to Chicago and New York, so it kind of makes it fun because I'm not exactly sure what I can do. I think I can run pretty quick, but there's also just like a little bit of uncertainty. Whereas if I ran it, you know, 4 weeks ago, I feel like it feel like almost a for sure thing. But yeah, Sunday will be. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, 2:10:27. Jerry Lawson, that's from 1993. So,
It's when I was born.
okay,
I
yeah,
was 2 months old.
yeah. So that'll be, yeah, it's what, 31 years old this year. Incredible. Well, you know this course better than anybody too, having run it. You're the defending champ. How many times have you run CIM?
So this will be my fourth.
Okay. Seeing this course, we know that like we've seen people go out and have different strategies against it. A lot of what we've seen be successful in the past is being able to kind of ride those early hills in the pack and then really hammer if you can that final 10K when it flattens out in town. What have you seen to be successful at CIM, and what are you thinking most about? What parts of the course heading into it this year?
Yeah, it just depends on, who else is in the race and how other people are running. But I think we're going to have a pacer. So if we are, then for the most part, I'm just going to kind of sit with the group, or I don't know how many people will go with the pacer, but, you know, sit with the pacer and whoever else is in there. And then just kind of see from there. And yeah, the last 10K can be, or it is fast and flat, and it's also around 20 miles. So people are typically slowing down there. So since the race will be out a little bit faster with a pacer, I don't know if there'll be like a big move the last 10K. It'll more just be like, okay, well, who can maintain, 209 pace? But if there's another guy or two that, and we both feel good running sub 210 pace, then maybe one of us have to put in a move. So you don't really know. You always want to be prepared that there's going to be a shift in pace and that you're going to have to close really fast. But in a lot of years where it's out a little bit faster, you don't really have to. You kind of just have to maintain a solid pace and not fall apart. So, which is what happened last year. I didn't run particularly fast the last 10K. It was just I maintained a lot better than anyone else did.
Yeah, I think this course is interesting because it is a net downhill, and a lot of people like to point that out. What's the biggest misconception about the course that you've heard from people who haven't run it?
I mean, it is definitely challenging at parts if you're thinking it's going to be a downhill course. I remember last year, for whatever reason in my mind, like the last of the hills was at like mile 9, and then we just kept being more hills, and I'm like, when are these gonna end? So it's not necessarily like hard, but it's, again, if you have it in your mind that's just gonna be fast, it's like, well, there's a lot of climbing, a lot of hills, and you can run those fast and you can get into a good rhythm and you know maintain on the uphills and get back into a really good rhythm on the downhills. So it can be a fast course for sure, but it's definitely like, if you're not really ready for it, it can be a little annoying the first 12 miles or so, and then it's the second half is pretty fast. I mean, you're tired and can feel a little beat up and maybe flat from those hills and the downhills, but yeah, I mean, if you feel good, it can be really fast the last half, but definitely the first half is, yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I think more people have talked about that. Like, it is hilly. I mean, most of that 600 feet of climbing is all the first 12 miles of the race, which is not a ton, but it's significant.
And it can come back to bite people in the end too, which we've seen happen. Trying to use that beginning to bank some time, and then it comes back and gets you, like you're saying, on that flat faster section. Yeah, but so you're known as a racer who likes to go out and push the pace. You have quite a bit in the past. When it comes to racing with people, looking at drafting at any point or using people, or how do you feel about that type of racing? Because you seem like somebody who's very bullish on going to the front and making it your own, I guess, rather than run somebody else's race.
Yeah, that's a great, maybe like lesson in psychology of how people have perceptions of people. I mean, I've really only been to the front where I've been leading. Maybe those two races in Boston, and I think everyone remembers the first race in Boston where I was leading for 20 miles. And then the second time I was maybe leading a little bit more than I should have when there was a pack, but I would generally just kind of go to the front on the downhills. But every other race, even if I've gone out a little bit faster, I've been tucked in. Even going back to the 2020 trials, guy Lupacedra jumped out to the front, and I just went right behind him. I guess I led in CIM in 2019, but it's a long time ago. But again, everyone went out pretty slow in that race. But since then, in like every kind of race I've been in, I've pretty much been tucked in behind people, and I may go out like a little faster than maybe what's ideally best for me, but I'm still, I usually made that decision so that I could be with a pack and be tucked in and drafting. And for the most part, I'd say I try to tend to lean on like the selfish side, because I don't really feel like there's much benefit to me working together with other people and pacing, because if we all get strung out and just run solo, like I'm the best at that, because that's how I train. And when the race gets separated, usually people's pace starts to deviate a lot more, and I'm able to maintain pretty well. So, when there's little groups, I'm not super interested in working together. I mean, I'll take like a turn at the front if there's like two of us, or like if someone's been up front and they're kind of slowing down in it, and I feel like it personally benefits me to take a turn in the lead. But for the most part, I do whatever I can to not. And like, no one ever sees that because you're not on camera. Like, you're only on camera when you're at the front. So if you take the 20 something marathons I've ran, in Baja I had to lead because I was going for a time, and it was essentially a time trial, and those guys could care less about time, so they just sat on me. But those were some of the outlier races.
I guess, yeah, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I'm smiling because I knew that when I was teeing it up, like it didn't make total sense to say that you go to the front. But what you're describing as you think that when the pack breaks, you're the best person to, or running solo benefits you, which, yeah, it's like that. I could totally see that watching you race. And, and I'm getting this mental image of like a cue ball breaking up all the pool balls here. Because you want them to be out separately because kind of dragging people out into deep water and letting them fend for themselves.
Yeah, so there's been times where I've done that. I remember specifically once in grandma's. It wasn't a super competitive field and I wasn't in particularly good shape. So I wasn't confident that I could run the last 8 to 10 miles fast because I just hadn't been training very well or very much. So I was like, I'm gonna be hurting towards the end. So I was just kind of surging and like just I did enough to break up the race so that the last probably 14 miles, everyone was just running by themselves. And it really made people's overall times a lot slower than what they probably thought they were going to run. And it allowed me to finish second in that race when I probably wasn't second based on fitness, but I got everyone kind of isolated. And it worked. So, but that was that race, and it was a little bit smaller. Like in races like New York or Chicago or wherever, it's like that. Those, I mean, the guys up front are at a different level. So,
Yeah, you can have a greater impact. I mean, it sounds like it's not fun to be around you in a race, and it's not fun to not be around you either. So there's no benefit there as an opponent. This well, CIM I guess has a it's got a special place for you too. You've run it a few times, like you've said, and it's a family affair too. Seth, your brother-in-law, is racing this year as well. What are some special things about CIM that keep you coming back?
yeah, I mean, definitely like it feeling like a hometown race for me. I mean, being in California, I mean, mainly it's convenient, like I don't have, like, I don't really, I like not traveling, I guess. And so just, being able to drive and, and then go to like a place where it's like a good atmosphere. Like obviously like it's a big race, there's lots of people. But it's kind of like similar to Fresno in a way where it's like, it's really big, but also like there's in terms of population and stuff, but also it has like a real small town feel, and that's kind of like CIM. Like it's really big. I mean, forget how many participants there are, but it's a lot.
It's like
And it's
11,000.
yeah, and it's a big and it's competitive, and I mean, some guys sometimes there's like 60 people per gender or something like hitting OTQs. I mean, you just have these massive packs running pretty fast, but at the same time, it kind of feels like this like almost like small race where like it seems like half the people there know each other, or at least it feels like that for me because like a lot of people are. I mean, you have people from all over, but obviously there's a lot of people from California, and there's lots of people I've raced against, and so there's just like for me it's like a nice mix of like it's big but it feels small, but also fast at the same time. It's just like an interesting kind of vibe that is different from like I don't know, like a major or something. It's different and it's fun, but it's still competitive and fast. So you kind of get like all of the I don't know, all of the good things rolled into one.
Yeah, and it like you said, it kind of has that valley town feel too. I don't know if Sacramento people would call themselves like valley town people, but it's like the northernmost one, and like we're two guys who come from the Central Valley, so there's that tight camaraderie, and there's a lot of good history of running too that's come out of the Central Valley. Like you've had some great athletes in Fresno too. Obviously, you came out of there, and like guys like Kyle Alcorn too, and the state meet is held in Fresno every year where you live. So there's a lot of good history there, and it feels like CIM kind of ties right into that as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool seeing the capital at Christmas time. I mean, there's just a lot of unique things that make it fun.
Yeah. Is there a sense of pride for you and or like I got to defend the home turf here, especially now that you're the defending champ?
A little bit. I mean, I think yeah, since I won it last year, there's a little bit more of that, but I don't know. I guess I haven't really thought about it too much, but I mean, it's fun to win anywhere. But yeah,
Yeah. I remember well, on the flip side too, we were sitting at the after party a few years ago and your wife was lamenting the fact that you were running in Sacramento and you run in Modesto and Fresno and these marathons. Like, when are you going to get over to Europe? When can we go to Europe where you'll run a marathon there?
Yeah. Well, I did that. It didn't go well, so she maybe doesn't want to hear that back.
So you're never going back.
No, we might go back, but I'm just saying she might not want to hear this podcast and be like, man, I brought that upon myself because we didn't have that great of a time in Europe. Nothing. I mean, the race, yeah, I just personally didn't do well, but
Man, you got to go through it though a little bit before you can
yeah,
have a good one.
yeah. So hopefully next time goes better, whenever that is.
Yeah, and you've taken this year to knock them all off the continent too. Running.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't. Yeah, I hadn't ran new. I'd only done Boston for majors, and now I have. I got all the American ones done. So yeah,
Nice. Is that a goal of yours to run all the merit?
it's not necessarily our goal, but I think that I think I'll end up wanting to do them all. To see like experience, because like every race is different, and so it's cool to experience as much as you can. So yeah, I don't feel like it's this goal that I have to do, but I feel like you know I probably should, and it would be good to do as many as I can if it makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, as long as they don't conflict with CIM too, which for you it seems like that just means that they can't be on the same day.
Actually, none of them I don't think do,
No.
because I sit what even Sydney now, I think that's like August or something. So the last one is New York, which obviously I'm doing that double this year. So yeah,
Yeah, and I know this year, well, it seems like looking at the field lined up to race at CIM this year, it's as competitive up at the front as I've seen it in a while too. There's a number of sub 10 or 210 guys and guys who are right around there too. It's a different year because the trials window isn't open yet. So that kind of depth that we're going to see that we've seen from 210 to 220 might not be there or as significant. Who knows? Like it still could be. I mean, the weather's always great and people love rolling out here. But there, yeah, with that pack up front, how do you think the race will play out this year?
it's hard to say because people have those PRs, but you never really know. Okay, are they in that type of shape now? Maybe they ran it a few years ago. Like they could be in better shape, or there could be a new person. Like CIM is always a race where there's always someone kind of up and coming, and maybe they don't end up winning it or end up like running really fast, but like they're there for 20 miles, or like last year, Christian Allen was there for, I don't know. I think I passed him like 24 miles in. I mean, it was very late in the race. So yeah, there's always going to be probably there's got to be at least one, probably two or three like people that like on paper don't have real fast PRs that will end up going with us in the front pack, or at least being like right there. So yeah, I mean, you just don't really know what shape people are in, but I think for the most part, if the front pace is fast enough, and we do for sure end up having a pacer, and we're running fairly quick, like anywhere under 65 minutes, somewhere in the 64s. Like I feel like people will be fairly content with that, and they'll just sit with the group, and then afterwards we'll kind of figure it out. But yeah, that pack could be maybe 3 people. It could be like 10 people. I don't really know. It just kind of depends where people are at.
Yeah, I think as a spectator for me too, and a fan of US marathoning, this race is always really fun to watch because it's one of those where you can have like an up and comer or a breakout star who's coming up and challenging at the front as well. So you have this huge field of a lot of depth up there vying for the lead too. And it's Americans at the front of this race who are challenging and yeah, and trying to make a name for themselves. And then from there, maybe they jump to the majors, but this is really a springboard race too. And it's really cool that I think that it's in your backyard. And we've had guys like you and Brendan Gregg, who grew up in Davis and won it a few years ago too, running 211, come out here. And I mean, I'd love to see you take the course record and keep it in, or put it in California hands, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm hoping to do. But again, as I said, it's like you never fully know what's going to happen. And I think I've done enough to maintain fitness, but I mean, yeah, the last 4 weeks haven't been. It leads to like there's if there's a little bit of uncertainty, which I think maybe as a fan, it's like makes it more interesting. I mean, I'm confident, but also like there's like reality of running. But yeah, I think I'm probably I feel fitter than I was last year when I ran to 11 and 1. So, but again, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'm excited. If you're saying you're fitter than you were last year, then that's a pretty good
At
thing.
least I think I am. I don't know. But
Hey, who else would know? But yeah, what do you guys have planned for afterwards? I know this is the end of the year. This is going to be the fifth marathon that you've run this year. So what's the plan after you're rolling into the holidays?
yeah, we'll just go home, and then finals week will start. We have our cross country banquet that so next Wednesday, and then we oh no wait we don't we have Thursday. I thought we had something, but it's gonna be this Thursday. Thursday I think is my final class, and then I just got to get all my grades in, and then Friday we'll drive down to uh drop our kids off in LA with my wife's family. Yeah, and then we'll go on our cruise.
So it's just the two of you going on the cruise.
Yeah, so it'll be
Nice.
a true vacation.
Yeah, man, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good time. Yeah, and well, I guess yeah, I'm looking forward to you racing on December 8th. Looking forward to the field that's assembled and what everybody's gonna make this race as we approach that final 10K. That's always so pivotal in the outcome of CIM every year. But is there anything that you're gonna be running for specifically while you're out there this year, thinking about digging deep?
I don't know. I mean, every race is like a little bit different. So this year, I don't know. For the most part, I just try to have my mind off. I think my kids will be there, which they haven't been at like a lot of. Actually, I don't know if they. I don't think both of them have been at both of or at any other races this year. Like they've been at one has been at a race, but I don't think both of them have been at the same time. So having them there, I mean, they're only going to see maybe one or two spots, but just like knowing that they're there. At times I'll think about them, or more just think like, oh, like I want them to see me winning, and then my wife will be there too, and then yeah, and then I mean, I had an athlete that had passed away this, right before New York, and so that he'll probably just like whenever I'm at like a big race now, I think he'll probably creep into my mind and just want to, just do be loved running, so just do what I can and kind of things we've talked about, and like yeah, and then like with our cross country season ending, just like how like things I say to like my athletes when they're racing, I typically repeat to myself when I'm racing. So yeah, just kind of be all those things, but for the most part, I try not to think a whole lot when I'm actually racing. It's just like there's a couple moments where you lean on some things and remember like, oh yeah, I'm running. This is how I run fast. Maybe these are some people that like help trigger those cues, but I don't like to put like a lot of significance on a race. Like, oh, this has to be like I need to like finish this way in a race, like for this or for this person or for that. It's just like I just don't think that's necessary. It's just like
No,
a race is a race, and you know, like you may have some things that motivate you and get you through it, which are great. But yeah, I mean, it's like my yeah
yeah, no, it's I totally get you. It's the right like you want to think about those things and those people, but it's placing them in the right context and not thinking that you're trying to do anything for them, but using that strength to propel you forward if you can. And like that's yeah, that's always the I feel like that's a challenging thing when you get into the eye of the storm and you have to focus to separate those two, to split the hair there, but it's a special thing when you're on that when you know you're out there hurting and you're pushing and you can dig in and like and remember somebody else's strength too and try and get a little bit of that. And then it's I think that's a gift to those people as well whenever you can do that in my mind.
yeah. And this is like one last tip. I think that those types of things come more in handy for training because like when you're training there's a lot more time to think and like you have to make choices like am I gonna go run today? Like, am I gonna do this workout? Am I gonna do weights? Am I gonna, do this stretch or foam rolling or whatever I need to do? Like, am I actually gonna like, put my phone down and go to sleep earlier today? Like, those things like take a lot of like conscious decision making and effort. And so that's kind of like when you can like remind yourself of like, okay, like maybe this person or this situation or whatever, like this motivates me, or I want to do something for, this greater good, or like to help us, whatever. Like you have something that's like is motivating you. Like that's the time in training to like have that and do it for whatever you're doing it for, and to reflect on that. But when you're racing, it's like that's the time to like shut it off and know that like you've already done everything like for that purpose. And again, in a 2 hour or 3 hour race, like you may have a moment or two where that pops into your mind, but for the most part you're trying to keep your emotions down. You're just calm, like your mind's off, and you're letting the work that you've already done just present itself on the course.
Yeah, 100%. Just execute. I was listening to a podcast the other day, actually, that was talking about how, or a champion's approach, and how a lot of people think when you get into big moments that you have to do something that you've never done before. That's like, oh, I have to raise my game by this much. But it's actually that the people who really are successful in those moments just are able to do all the fundamentals when everybody else's head is spinning. They're able to just check things off and do everything that they normally do the right way. So that, yeah, that makes a ton of sense to just get out there and execute when you've put in all the work already.
Yeah, it's like the moment automatically elevates you, and the race automatically makes your paces faster. So if you're like, and that's like something I try to communicate in training or in racing. It's like, okay, if you're trying to race at a certain pace that maybe you don't quite hit in practice, it's like you don't need to try harder. Like the race itself and the adrenaline and the environment is gonna just naturally give you those 5 to 10 seconds a mile quicker pace that maybe you want. And so if you can resist the urge to like feel like you have to give this extra effort because it's a race, and just give the same effort and execute just how you do in practice, then the moment or the race will just automatically elevate you. So it's, yeah, you don't have to do anything different. And in some ways it's actually it's a little bit easier in the race. Like the race is, a race is a lot easier than, some like tempo runs or something, because like those you really got to grind. A race you just get in and you just go and you let the moment take you.
Man, that's why you got to take your shot every time, and you do. I'm excited. I wish I was jumping out there on December 8th, but
I'm sure you could still get in there.
no, come on. I've got work to do that day. But yeah, super excited to see you out there the day before when we do the bib reveal. You'll have a special bib that you're wearing, I'm sure, being the defending champ. And then that what 5 a.m. bus ride out to Folsom will be a good one.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thanks a ton, CJ. It's been great talking to you, and look forward to seeing you in Sacramento. Knock it out there, man.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'll be seeing you in a few days.
All right, December 8th, the first edition of the California International Marathon. CJ Albertson will be out there, and see you all next time.